I want to talk about, before we get into the Dark Souls, about this, right? This is something I've talked about before, but it's happening again, so let's talk about it again. So, the old George R.R. Martin was doing another interview, talking about the faded winds of winter. And, the whole interview, people were talking about whether or not there are, like, misunderstandings in this interview, because there was weird phrasing around, final book, right here. So, long awaited... What the hell just happened? So the phrasing... Why do you keep scrolling? Why do you keep scrolling? So the phrasing here, right, the awaited 6th and final book, implying that Winds of Winter is the final book. But it's not. The final book is a dream of spring. This is not the final book. So people were saying, like, is this an indirect confirmation that there's not even a plan for the final book? Because as much as it seems like a goofy thing, you know, that there's not even a plan, people have actually speculated that maybe the books will be merged into one. I have no clue how that would even work, because I think the Winds of Winter would be a massive book, and if anything, I kind of think it might be split. Like the Winds of Winter might be split in two, and then A Dream of Spring is a separate thing. I don't know, but that's beside the point. Point being, I'm not even going to read the replies, but a lot of people were very, very mad, right? And I saw this, and I fully agree with this. The replies on this one are very disheartening, to say the least. No wonder he feels this way. Some of y'all don't deserve wins to begin with. As a creative, it's not always easy to stay motivated, and harsh words from people who allegedly support your work make it harder. I was reading this, and I don't think I would wish what George is going through on any person doing anything creative, like, seriously, ever. I am very surprised he doesn't have extremely deep resentments with everything to do with Game of Thrones. I genuinely think, and I say this as obviously as a joke, but I do think this. I think he is having a bit of an Oppenheimer moment. I think he hates basically what he's built. I think he hates the fact that he can't complete it. I think he hates the fact that it's taking too long and that he can't push himself through it. I think, oh my god, like, it must be exhausting that the only thing people talk about is how you've basically failed your own legacy. It's wild. Because when I think about Game of Thrones, basically, I think every single person who's saying that he should just finish the book should try writing a basic fantasy novel. Not Game of Thrones, a basic fantasy novel. Out of nothing. Come up with the characters, their stories, how they interact, and try writing a basic story. And see how quickly you'll get lost in the sauce. Just how quickly it happens, because you need to keep a freaking wiki for yourself, and unfortunately, there is no wiki you can really Google because you're writing it from scratch, right? And with something like Game of Thrones, it is absurd. How many POV characters there are and how many moving pieces there are, it's wild. I've got no idea. Like, and it's not even about the practicality of finishing what you've written. It's about the... I'm very surprised he's not just miserable, like, straight up. I'm very surprised he hasn't completely pulled back from doing any interviews or really doing anything. Because when he was talking about, like, visiting Tolkien's grave, that was, like, a very raw moment from him, where it's about the legacy that he's going to leave behind. And you can guarantee it. The internet will tear him apart, whatever his legacy ends up being. It's going to be either it took too long, he never finished it, or even if he did finish it, it wasn't worth the wait. It's going to be one of these three things. It is literally a lose-lose-lose situation. And that's the worst part about this. He's already cemented a wonderful legacy. And I think people who don't realize, like, the Game of Thrones, both the television series, well, the television series just wouldn't exist without the book, so obviously, right? But the television series and the books literally reshaped the way television is consumed, period. Not even fantasy, not even the fantasy genre and how these sort of morally gray characters are written. Literally, television as an entire medium has shifted because of what Game of Thrones did. It is wild to me to say that, like, he's lazy and hasn't done enough. Like, he literally built an entire... It's not even a cult following because it engulfed the entire world, you know? When Game of Thrones was at its peak, we haven't seen anything like it. Even now, if you look at Google Trends, Game of Thrones eclipses everything. It's wild. What does Winds Attack on Titan and New Earth Avatar have in common? Deranged fanatics that dogpile on a creative person trying to create something? Yep. Yep. I read the books when I was like 18 and I was lost. I mean, the books are extremely dense, yeah. And one thing that also, by the way, I don't see people talking about, and honestly, like, I'm not the right person to talk about this either, just because, like, I'm gonna be real, I don't think I've read enough books to really speak on this, but if you read one of Martin's books, like one of the books in the Song of Ice and Fire series, and you read another fantasy book, just pay attention to the sentence structure that Martin does. Because it's not about prophecies and weird magic systems and big wars and morally great characters. Like, literally the fundamental way Martin writes, every single sentence is different. Even, like, basic things, like, he doesn't overuse pronouns while talking about the same character. Right? Usually when you're talking about the same person, it's going to be, he did this, he did that, he blah blah blah, he blah 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 blah, he blah 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 blah, he blah 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 blah. Martin's books don't have that sentence structure. They just don't. So I think even if he writes his manuscripts and he completes them, like, the refinement process must be insane. Just the language he uses is extremely creative. It's cinema. It's cinema. And even if he doesn't complete it, so be it. Just for people to stop waiting for me, especially if I hate it. Like in manga, sometimes just focusing on some parts, abandoning others, removing complexity. I don't think he will. I think, like, at this point, I don't think he will ever release anything that he's not like, this is the Winds of Winter. I don't think he will ever release anything that he considers subpar. I think if, like straight up, it's been 13 years. If he wanted to do that, and if he wanted to appease insane people on the internet, he would have done it. So I don't think that's gonna happen. Like, if anything, I wouldn't be surprised if there's been even more bloat behind the scenes. Like, he started writing it, and it's just even more. I am so sad for George. I really, really am. Everything he says, it's wild to me how one of the most, like, personally for me, even impactful authors, a person who redefined the entire fantasy genre, a person who alone is responsible for creating a cultural phenomena, the person who by all accounts has left behind an incredible legacy already, the only thing people can focus on is not on what he's done, but what he hasn't done. It's crazy. I hate people sometimes. Just all people. All people. All of humanity. All of it. It's all bad. It's all bad. We don't deserve the Winds of Winter. Okay, Aaron, chill. No. Aaron's a bit, you know, a bit dicey. I feel so bad for George, though. The thing that I would, like, really be interested in is, how much the television series impacted the way he thinks about it. Because I do think seeing what happened to HBO, and, like, the downfall of that entire escapade, I do think that must have also been a big thing. I just want this old man to be happy and healthy. I don't know any author is more hardworking than Oda and GRM. I mean, even if you look at, like, past all the things that he's doing with books, he's working on, like, however many television series at the same time. My simplest summary of what I think the problem is that the people complaining about him, like, not doing stuff on time and him being lazy, yada yada yada, I genuinely think these are just people who have never done a single creative endeavor in their lives. And I think genuinely that is the root cause of all of it. I think anyone who's done anything even like small scale will know that it's not just something that you do and it's like job's done. It's not. Anyway, that's enough of my rant.